So Johnny, did you wish you brought the side-by-side?
Actually, no. I'm happy that I did not bring the side-by-side.
Right
I was more happy riding in the Jeeps. What a great experience.
What about the experience made it great?
Gosh,
Besides me.
probably.
There is the Joel effect.
I mean, if you're going to include the equipment, I mean, the equipment's amazing. I mean, learning all the information that you share with me today, I kind of geek out about, the mechanics of it, and all you guys actually shared with me, which is awesome. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be here and learn about it. And I've never done any rock crawling before. And
Not a bit.
no, never.
Because I always worried that we're just bringing people out to something that, I've done that.
No. And listen, man, I've raced race cars,
Mhm.
and I do the side-by-side thing, and I've just doing rock crawling is just something I've never done.
What kind of race cars?
So for 12 years, I raced sprint cars.
Nice.
I
Okay,
started
right
in
on.
2001. I did dirt tracks, winged sprint cars.
Yeah.
We traveled all over the country. I probably ran, probably between 30 and 40 races a year, every year.
Wow.
And
Jeez.
that was a great experience as well.
Is that just
So,
pure hobby, or is it?
pure hobby? It was not a moneymaker.
I hear it. There's an old saying, I probably said on something else today, if you want to make $1 million racing, you start with 2.
Exactly. Absolutely. That's 100% right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was on a local Top Fuel pit crew way back, like 2000, late 90s. I drove the transport. I redid the bottom end or the clutch on that rig just as we were getting licensed for NHRA. And dude, it's amazing the money they pour in. $1,100 just for a barrel of fuel.
Yep.
That we're going through 3 races. Gone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's amazing the money you spend and that kind of stuff. You better want it. So ours, like we were sharing the equipment, that kind of thing. Yeah, we break things. We do the coolest thing, and it sucks. We rip it off the next deal.
Yep.
I don't know how many times we've been through.
We had that moment today where I'm like, I don't want to end up in the shop again. I just got out of the shop. It's like 11 G's last time. I'm like, let's not do it again. But
Yeah, if you're gonna do any kind of this stuff, though, you got to be prepared to get back in the
Oh, yeah.
shop.
Today was fun. We went down some new stuff that we hadn't gone down before, and
With a little rain.
it puckered a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah. So what
little bit.
we were what 25
We got
degrees?
to 25 or 26 right in there, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know.
I think it.
we had
couple more,
one
it
guy
might
in
have
the
gone
group
over.
tonight that like his window kissed the rock and like flexed his back window. Like we were this close to.
Yeah, Corey.
A little bit of fun.
People have seen him before on the show, and yeah,
It's Kahuna, dude.
I call him Corey.
Okay.
Yeah, the respect is gone. But for him to lean that hard and kiss the rock was awesome. Just all of it, every single damn bit of it. I enjoyed every bit of it, and what gets me going is having people come out for the first time and then put you behind the wheel of the rig and then just let you touch it for a little bit and see what it's like.
What was your favorite part?
Of driving or just
The whole day. Besides meeting me.
Well, honestly, so
Well, there is no favorite part.
so besides all the rigs and how capable they are, which I'm really impressed with, I got to be honest with you. I never thought that I just never been around it. So when you see it in action, it's very eye opening. But I would say, like, I spent a lot of my time today with Floyd, and I thought we had some great conversation. And that was very meaningful to me.
Yeah.
I've known you now for a few years, and
A couple 2 years.
and it's I thought created a great relationship, and I feel like I've learned a ton from you, and that was just exasperated here, and
This jackass.
you
And then you.
Damn.
Comic relief.
I can't wait to learn more about you.
Well, what was cool
Build
about
1,000 bridges.
about this spot right here, it was a month ago when we were here filming. I shot the YouTube thing out for my whole database just because I have to do it every couple of days. It'd be cool to do it from the site. And I'm not, 3 hours later, I get an email from him with a picture of his computer screen. Hey, mother effer, when am I going out to do some of this stuff? I'm like, in a month.
Yeah.
So you asked for it, you get it.
Yeah, no,
I'm glad you did, because you were on the list. They have seen the list. Like, and wasn't sure when to put you on it. It's like, when is it going to fit for John? And then when you said that, it's like, it's fitting for John.
Well, listen, it was completely random, and I was kind of half-hearted kidding. But I'm super grateful to be here.
When
Awesome.
you show you're ready, you're ready.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
you got a great crew.
So you're here. We're all in the real estate business, right? We're stretching our wings and flexing new muscles and stuff. Like, did anything today get you out of your comfort zone? And did any of that compare with like being uncomfortable in business? And how?
No,
I mean, you race cars, so it's probably like,
yeah. I mean, I'm not uncomfortable behind the wheel of anything, or even riding with you. None of that bothered me at all, just because I do have all that experience. How do I tie that to real estate? I don't think I have a great answer.
Well, I mean, let's just kind of roll backwards anyway. I mean, what got you started? I mean, you can't just decide one day to go, I'm just going to do real estate. Something had to fuel that. And a lot of times it's whether it's your acquisition of capital, whether it's I had a really shitty experience in the job that I'm in, whatever that. So where did John start? Let's just go all the way back where John got going.
All right, so that's a great question. I have a substantial business that I started with my brother-in-law, who's my lifelong partner, and started back in 1996. We roll it to 2007. We had built it up to a point where we had gotten bought out, and it was enough money. It was generational wealth. It was enough money to where we both could retire. Our kids did not have to worry about money. Probably our grandkids did not have to worry about money. I spent the next 4 or 5 years sort of, getting in and out of different small businesses. All the things that I got into, I applied the same success principles that I had when I was actually working or doing the previous business, and I felt like I just wasn't recreating. Oh shit, I'm nervous now. Shit.
Well, maybe you had success.
Yeah.
You go out, and I think from an entrepreneur perspective, I'm picking up what you're putting down. It's like you find success, something you're really good at. You have a big windfall. You kind of try and retool, and then you go back out into the trenches and you try and find something that fits with both what you think should be both your skill set, your personality, and your lifestyle. And that's a difficult rematch.
Yeah.
Right? Like to create that rematch again. And I think it's one of the most difficult things to do as an entrepreneur is to have that second stroke, that second strike of lightning. Yep. And be like, hey, we don't have to work, but we want to work. We're motivated, we're focused. But what is it what else is out there that fits for John, that fits for Joel, that fits for Chappie and Floyd? It's tough to rematch that again.
Yeah, so the big thing for me was I noticed a slow degradation over a long period of time of my lack of, rigidity and structure and my ability to be motivated. And I spent a lot of, days and weeks and months, just kind of waking up in the morning going, hey, gee, Gaston, what are you into today? What's your purpose? And I found myself in a pretty lonely spot. So I started looking, for different opportunities. And when I came across when I was looking for opportunities, I had to check certain boxes, right? One of them was it couldn't be a full whole life sale or a life change. I know I could go open a gym, which is my previous business. I knew I could open a gym, but I would have to be there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to make it work, selling gym memberships.
Suck up all your bandwidth.
Absolutely.
Right. You didn't want it to be your new lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Right?
So anyway, going through this whole process, and I had to check all these boxes, I landed on real estate. And that was about, 4 years ago I started researching it. I got involved with a company called Narada, and they brought me into single families, which is how I met you. I went through the process with you of closing on 9 different single families, and I realized very quickly that it's a lot of work closing on a single door. And I pivoted very quickly over to thinking, hey, or at least I was told, or I learned that closing on one door has the same, you have to put in the same amount of effort and the same amount of due diligence as closing on 100 doors, as an example, and I wanted to scale. So that's why I pivoted over to multifamily from singles, and well, that's it. I mean, that's how I got into it.
You pivot into it because you're going to have that thought process, man, going to multi, that's got to be huge. So let me start over here, and you have to actually get your mind wrapped around the fact that, hey man, this is not that difficult.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to do. You made it easier just by looking at the beginning product, and then you come to realize, wait a minute, it's all the same thing. And that's what I realize when I get in the rooms with people and I get in discussion, I'm always thinking these big business discussions, they go into the boardroom, it's got to be some magical shit going on in there. It's just a bunch of dudes sitting around a freaking table.
Yeah.
That's really all it is.
Mhm.
I'm always fascinated about that spark, that moment, like, because it is a pivot, it's a decision, and it's not just a decision, it's a choice, which there's a distinction there. But when you go, I want to get out of the single door closing business and go into the multifamily business, at what point do you go like, should I do 10? Should I do 20? Should I do, and then you read all the books and everyone says 100 is the magic number. Like that's like the single development kind of magic number to have internal scalability. But like going from 1 to 100, like how do you get that courage up and go from that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So all the guys, Grant Cardone's and all these other guys out there talking about, you got to go big, go 200, go 300 doors. I know that starting, from a new, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have screw ups. So I figured, let me make a mistake at 30, 50, 60 doors. Let me fuck that up.
Market of error is a lot smaller.
Yeah, exactly. Versus, screwing it up on, 200 doors. So that's where I kind of got started. I ended up joining a mentorship program. And my first deal was a 96 unit apartment complex out of Lexington, Kentucky.
Nice.
My second deal was another 96 unit. And my third deal was a 108 unit deal out of, and all three of them are in Lexington, Kentucky, in this little area called Cardinal Valley, and it's just a little sub-market inside of Lexington, and they've been great. And it's been a huge learning experience, and I've had a number of false starts, kind of going through this process. And
you get a deal, you get a deal going, and you're excited about it, and then it's like you find something, you get, we call it the hair on the dog. You're like, this one has a little too much hair.
Yeah.
Let's maybe find another
Yep.
pig to put lipstick on. So you did 3 deals. They're each about 100 units. You've got a good footprint now in Lexington. Like, what makes you decide like it's time to double down in this market, or I have too much geographical risk in this market and I want to jump into another 300 in another market? Or does it make more sense to expand that footprint to get to 10,000 doors in one market?
So
what's your philosophy there?
So the ultimate goal is to get to 10,000 doors. Just use that as the initial mark. But I got to be honest with you. Right now, my focus is performing for the investors that have bought into me and bought into these deals. So I haven't really, and COVID has a lot to do with this line of thinking. So the main focus is operations. Creating or getting or stabilizing the properties, starting to pay disbursements to the investors. And once we can do that, we're confident, we know it's repeatable and duplicatable, then we'll start looking out
before you run.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no way that I would ever go out and try to close more deals when I have a handful that are not working.
You got some performance stuff you got to.
So I got to work through all this, and I feel obligated to my investors, and I kind of heard that from you earlier today.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. And
I
take that very, very, it's very, very close to my heart too.
Plus, you earn your chops on those, makes the other one smoother. You're able to apply things you've learned on the next one. So I'm really curious about if you made that you got that kind of stroke on the first one, where generational wealth, right, has already come through that one deal. Why move on to the next one?
Yeah.
What does it do for you?
What drives you?
Well,
I mean, if people are sitting here watching this, they're like, wait a minute, this is not a guy that is had to get up every day and keep cranking it out and whatever. This is the guy who did, and then bam, you got there. You reached it. You got what you were getting, what everybody's seeking to get. So why step back into the fray?
Why put it back at risk?
So I'm going to tell you right now, don't ever retire. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. I mean, it sounds cool, to have you have this generational wealth, if you want to call it that. And it didn't matter if I woke up, if I made this decision or that decision, it doesn't matter. What it really boils down to for me is I need to feel like I'm making progress in something. I have to be engaged. I have to be passionate about it. And that's why I went through this process. I have to, you know, if I'm going to get into something, I have to check these boxes. And this multifamily real estate or getting into real estate investing did check all of those boxes. Yes, it's a lot of work to go through due diligence, source the deal, build the relationships with the brokers and the property managers and all that kind of stuff. But after you get through all of that process through the close, you have one relationship. And I can manage that relationship from anywhere in the world. So it's that was a huge thing for me. It really comes back to making progress. It just just a short answer to your question. I have to feel like I'm making progress, and I believe that most people, you know, have to have, you know, some semblance of that feeling.
I would hope so. What did it feel like when you were like, I don't have to get up today. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. What did it feel like to be in that spot? Because a lot of people are like, I just want to know what it feels like to be in that spot.
At first, it's awesome. At first, it's great. I have no qualms about that. I'm gonna go play golf. I'm gonna have lunch with my wife. You know, but you know, after a while, but how long can you really do that?
So much
for?
Golf and so much lunch with wife that you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I got to. And that's where I was talking earlier about this slow degradation of, you know, my ability to, you know, be dedicated and to be structured. And you know, you wake up too many mornings in a row, and you're like, "Geez, you know, what's your purpose?" And I didn't have an answer for that. Yeah. So that's when I knew I had to get into something. Okay. And that's, you know, when I went.
How long did you go? How long did that go?
I would say for the first
4 days. No,
shit, no. It was
like, how long was the jerking off going on?
Yeah, no, okay, so that's a good point, right? Yeah. So I would say probably a couple of years before I really was like, oh man, you're really going the wrong direction here. So, and that's you know.
But I mean, you got to experience it. You got to know. Mm-hmm. A lot of us, we're just going. We're machines because we're machines. Mm-hmm. I have actually one gear, and it's actually a really high speed gear. I'm just running all the time, mm-hmm. and I can't sit still. I'm going nuts because of the shoulder and all that kind of stuff. And then I get to thinking about something like that. I'm like, I wouldn't want it.
No,
I really don't.
So here's one of the things I learned too. So a lot of times people go through a process, they become very successful, and then after they become successful, they become unhappy. So why does that happen? The reason why that happens is because they stop doing the things that made them successful in the first place. It's waking up in the morning, it's reading your books, it's meditating, it's you know, doing your physical fitness, you know, getting all of these things, you know, done so that you can go out and conquer the world. And when I talk about a slow degradation of, you know, my effort, that's what I'm talking about. I stopped doing the things that made me successful in the first place. And that's what I'm trying to get back to now.
Okay. That's why we go hunting, because it's not the kill. It's not the harvest.
Oh, it's everything.
The second the trigger is pulled, or the second the release that happens on the bow, the feeling's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's everything you're doing right up to that second. That last heartbeat when you pull that trigger, that very last heartbeat when you flick loose to that release on your bow, and then all of a sudden it changes everything.
Absolutely.
So that feeling for me is the same thing that I feel when I sell something. It's like that's like that baby that I just let go. Mm-hmm. And yes, you get to bank the cash, and then you get to go find a new deal, but you essentially have put yourself out of a job.
Yeah.
You've stopped the hunt because you're no longer nurturing that investment that you work so hard to source and so hard to like find the due diligence on and do everything else.
So we live in a society that's becoming more and more dependent on what people can do for me or you, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of what can I do for myself and jerk me off or work harder or whatever. What would you say to
jerking off?
What's that?
What would you say? Quit jerking off.
What would you say to the youth in our society today? If you had to come up with something that you would try to give them motivation or some type of understanding of what it means to do something for yourself, work for yourself, to make something of themselves. I mean, what would you? You know, we had a lot of conversations at Jerk about our kids.
Yep.
And you know, they're what's important to them today wasn't what was important to us when we were kids. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say that it's worse, but my son doesn't want to get his license. Your two oldest daughters, they've got it and they
Yep.
love it, but there's no real purpose for your son in his mind to get it. Just kind of last a basic on that aspect. So what would you say to kids today to help maybe spark something into them that would get them motivated?
Man, that's a good question, and that's such a broad question. I don't know if what would I say? So, for example, my son, his name, he's 11 years old. He got into gaming, and the biggest thing that I'm doing for him right now is creating structure for him, because with all this COVID, he's not at school, which a lot of kids are not. All kids are not in school right now. But for me, I just couldn't let him just kind of go down a pathway where he became more and more lethargic and less and less motivated.
Yeah, sense
When,
around.
when he was 9, 10 years old, he's like, hey, Dad, let's go out and throw the football. And over time, he doesn't ask that anymore. So what I'm trying to do right now is just provide structure to him, and he has to earn that time on the game. I'm not saying the gaming's not cool and you can't do it, but he's got to earn it.
So we have an app called Busy Kid that you should check out with the kids. Like,
cool.
Just saying from an investment perspective, it's a cool one. But great way to motivate the kids and keep them rolling. So
We'll do it.
Yeah, it monetizes.
It monetizes their behavior and ties direct results to behavior, which is what I think they need, and provides
Cool.
structure for kids. So, you asked the question, and it was for him, but like for me, it's like, what would you say? And I think the one thing for kids these days that's missing, and I don't know if it's our fault because they didn't have the same struggles that we had, it's that sense of urgency. Like, do you feel it like with your kids? I know I do it, at least with my daughter. It's like, I gave her an opportunity to earn some money this summer, and I was like, hey, one of our companies has an opportunity to do some ministerial work, and like, do you want to? She's like, I don't know. I was like, what the? I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like the easiest money you can make. And she was not interested, so I talked to her mom.
She doesn't know what making hard money is.
So she's doing it because thankfully her mom backed my plan, and like she's going to do it, but I'm finding it's a bit of a struggle to get the kids to be like, hey, like have that same sense of urgency that we had, and I don't know how to convey it, and I don't know if you guys are experiencing it with your kids.
I am. We talked about it with my kids as well, and the twins are a little bit different than Riley, my oldest, and he's it's the urgency definitely isn't there. It's more of a whatever.
Okay.
Who cares? Like, oh, you want the dishes done? Okay.
Well,
I'll do half.
they'll say they will, and then you come back later and say,
And it's not done. And I'm not saying when my parents told me to do dishes, I was happy, and I was like, all right, I'll do dishes, Mom. But it was,
You
it's
did
just
them with a
it's-
sense of urgency.
You
yeah,
do.
because you can beat us.
But I think it's
did.
just, I think
They were
it's,
the big foot.
yeah, they were.
And the wooden spoon.
And the paddle
And the belt.
And, yeah.
One of the, not to cut you off, but one of the things that I did with my kids, and we'll get to Davis in a second, but 2.5 years ago, I implemented a program. I said, okay, and I didn't make this up myself. I learned it from somebody, and I'm so grateful that I did, because I'm always a proponent of lifelong learning. Early on, I listened to a sales tape called Think and Grow Rich, or I'm sorry, Brian Tracy, Psychology of Selling, and he, I took away a couple of concepts, and one of them was, read for 15 minutes every single day on, sales, leadership, customer service, something like that. You'll all but double your money, that year, or double your income that year. And I bit into that very hard. So fast forward to the kids, 2 years ago, I put together a program where I said, all right, so instead of you getting an allowance for doing chores, making your bed, doing the dishes, we're going to make that, hey, that's your payment for being a part of the household, right?
Brilliant.
You have
You're
to
speaking my language.
this is what you need to do to contribute to that roof over your head. But I will give you a payment if you will go out and read a book on leadership, success, teen success, anything that you're interested in. Like my second kid, my second daughter Lexi, she's all into music. If she wanted to go read a book on Katy Perry as an example on how she came up, she has to read the book, she has to write me a 1 to 2 paragraph summary of that book, and I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to give you money. And it has to be a book that's not a part of the school curriculum.
Yep.
But man, that has been huge for my girls because they're self-motivators, right? They're self-motivated. I just haven't gotten to that point with Davis yet. So that's a good question.
Yeah. You got to hunt and find where that motivation is
Yeah.
at, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's not easily apparent.
Yeah,
We do that.
absolutely.
We do that in
Yeah.
our family, and it was from the philosophy of, I don't want to pay you for menial tasks. I don't want to train you that your best trade of your labor is for taking out the trash
Mhm.
or for making your bed or doing something that's ministerial, right? I want to train you that your best trade for your labor is in your knowledge, and the more knowledge you have, the more value you'll be in society and to the world and to your family and everything else. So we do literally the exact same thing.
That's
We
awesome.
don't pay for chores.
Yep.
We pay for books.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
read a book.
That's awesome.
You get paid.
There you go.
So going back to everything that you've done, all the stuff that got you up to the point where you're able to have that windfall capital and then enjoy that for a couple of years, then try and refine purpose and all that. I'm really curious, and we ask everybody, what is the absolute worst thing that's ever happened in your life to end up being the best thing that could have ever happened to get you where you wanted to go?
Whew. So going back to my first career, which was a personal training company that was operated inside of LA Fitness, we were in probably 150 locations inside of LA Fitness. We were in California, Arizona, Georgia, Florida, the Northeast, total of about 150, 160 locations. Well, in Southern California, we made the local news. At that point, we had grown so fast, and we just didn't have the infrastructure that would support all of the hiring that we had to do, the recruiting, the hiring, the training of all these new employees. Letting them know what a salesperson can and cannot say to a potential client. Well, I had one sales guy down there in San Diego, happened to be sitting across from a woman that is a local news anchor, and told her that she can cancel her agreement anytime that she wants for no cost. Well, that's a lie, and he did that to close the deal. So I call it chicken shit close.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, she comes back, tries to cancel. We say, no, sorry, whatever. She blasts us all over the news. Well, LA Fitness came along and said, we don't like the way you do business. We are going to kick you out of everything. But they allowed us to remain in Georgia and Florida, which happened to be our most profitable regions at that time. And I'm so grateful that they allowed us to stay there. But so that's the worst thing that could have happened. And by the way, my wife was 8 months pregnant. So I had to, make all these different decisions. We're kicked out of California. We're kicked out of Arizona. We're kicked out of the Northeast. We're kicked out of Washington and Portland. One employee. And it was one decision. Yeah, one decision.
Yeah, what amazing the amount of weight one small decision can carry.
Absolutely. So we had to go through that process, and I ended up moving my entire family to Atlanta so that I could kind of, wave the company sword. And because if you're thinking about it, gosh, if you're an employee there, you're thinking, oh, geez, it's just a matter of time. I'm going to be slaved myself.
Yep.
So I had to get out there and just make sure that everybody knew that we were driving forward.
We're good.
Then that we're good, and we made an amazing transition from that. It forced us to get better. It forced us to retool everything that we were doing. So it was the worst thing that could have happened at that time, but it ultimately ended up being the best thing for our business because that's what catapulted us back into, being in the good graces of LA Fitness.
Yeah.
It's allowed us to grow with them. I mean, ultimately, by the time we were done, we were in 225 locations.
Wow.
And all across America and Canada, and it was a great experience. I'm so grateful for it, and so that I think it's a great example of something
a couple things that comes out of that. You got one, how fragile things are when one person makes a stupid decision. It doesn't even have to be you.
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand as business owners the risks that we take on just by adding people to the staff. We're having our struggles right now with stuff, and we're gonna have to expand, but we also have to get things shored up within in-house. The other thing is how come when you find that there's any complacency and it forces you to start digging through it, how much better things become. You can't ever rest on your heels.
Yep.
You got to be leaning into it
Yep.
all the time.
Always.
And all I do is help you guys figure out a reason to lean into
Absolutely.
it. You need
And
another reason.
And listen, if you ask any one of the top brass that was with us at that time, everyone agrees. We had to go through that situation in order to retool and to make ourselves better. If we didn't go through that situation, we'd have just kind of kept going the way we were, not really knowing. Yeah, and potentially lost. I mean, it could have been a greater loss.
It could have faded completely into obscurity.
100%.
The other thing is the relationship you have. It's interesting how people think that you have a better relationship when everything always goes perfect.
Yeah.
The relationships come when they get rocky and you pull out of it.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
when it gets rocky and they see a guy that falls on their face and stays on their face, well, you've already sorted yourself
They've
out.
made up their mind.
But when you get back up, it's like, okay, that's somebody I can work with.
Absolutely.
That's somebody that solves problems. When you
Mhm.
can't solve a problem, done.
Yeah,
The
agreed.
rigidity of the vessel is defined in rough waters.
Absolutely.
You know.
100% right.
You're going to get tested at some time. So I think the only freaking last question is, what color is your Jeep going to be?
Purple.
Okay, you're
Like
way back there.
She got a pink trailer too.
That's a good color.
Hey man, absolute blast having you out. Thanks for coming,
Yeah,
and thanks for
definitely.
sharing. Like, it's important to share what we're learning, and it's a way for us to kind of pay it forward. So we just want to say thanks on behalf of SGSC and QJO Initiative, man. Thanks for being here.
That's awesome. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I tell you, I've one of the big takeaways today after watching the other interviews is there's a common theme. There's a common theme for all entrepreneurs, and anytime you have somebody that wants to get into business and go out and do something that's meaningful and going to change the world, there's going to be a series of false starts. And the difference between somebody that's successful and somebody that's not is that they persevere through all of those false starts. They get past all of them. They don't quit after the second or third or the fourth, even the 10th. They just keep going.
They find a way to win.
Absolutely.
And they
find
don't
a
know
way to
which
win.
one's going to be the non-fault start.
Absolutely.
Just keep trying to keep finding the right path. I think what I took from this one more than anything, I'm going to tell everybody who's paying attention here, you're all striving for the one thing. You want to reach your Everest. You want to reach your pinnacle. You want to sit back. You want to enjoy the fruits of all that labor and that wealth that comes in. It's like when I talk about Sir Edmund Hillary gets on top of Everest, he can only stay there for 15 minutes because that bitch he killed him. Had to get back down. Then what's his life about?
Yeah.
He's known for the first person to climb Everest, but that's it. You're going to be doing more than that. You already climbed your Everest, but you're going to find another one.
Yep.
And another one. And another one. And just tell everybody. And when you get there, it's not that damned awesome.
Yeah.
You get a selfie
Find a new
at a
map.
really tall spot.
15
Big damn
minutes
deal.
at the top of
So it's time to move
Kilimanjaro.
on.
Yep.
So
Yep.
thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you passing that on because people don't know that. A lot of people that don't really realize that when you get there, it's like, I want to keep doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
So awesome, man. Thank you.
Thanks,
No, I
Doug.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
Thank
the
you
time.
guys.
For sure.
Thank you.
Get
Thank
back on the trail, dude.
Yep.